Hello, my name is Christy Godwin. I'm a psychic medium. I'm here today with Doug, who has so kindly agreed to talk about his reading. Thank you so much for being here today.
You bet, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for asking me. It's
He
fun.
had a great reading. I was very excited he agreed to be here. Now, you came to me a little bit differently because you didn't actually book your appointment.
No, I had no, I didn't. I've searched mediums before, and then suddenly, synchronicity, my friend Joey, gifted me and a mutual friend. Well, my friend, she's a friend through my friend Roger, and then I knew her recently, and they've been friends since the sixth grade. So
Um,
when she and our birthdays are close together, a month apart. His is the 18th of February, mine's March 19th. So she just gifted us both a reading. And so I said, yeah, awesome. She asked me permission first. Would you mind you getting a reading? Would you be weirded out by no, no, that's what I want. It's good for please, please. So then that's how
and
I
she bought those gift certificates. She had not even had a
yeah.
and then but she did. She had a reading and then y'all booked yours.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And then when you had yours, I didn't realize you knew the other person.
Oh yeah. I know. Yeah.
And so then we'll talk about something that happened during that reading
Right, exactly.
that
Exactly.
later. But yeah, so I was I thought, bless Joey's heart. She had such confidence in me just from viewing my videos and my Facebook page to
Yeah.
be gifted people.
Best sales is word of mouth, really. That's
Yes, it really is.
advertising.
And I had been told, it's funny because as you're training to be a medium, you practice a lot with other mediums. And I had been told many times that my business was basically going to grow from word of mouth more than anything else.
Mm.
Has, and I feel so blessed for that. Now, had you had a reading before?
A while ago, like in '05, and I was like I told you, mentioned you in my reading, it was like a very, I couldn't really explain it. It was fun at the time, but it didn't really have a hang time afterwards. Like, yeah, that was fine. But then I heard the recording, you get a cassette tape recording she sent back, and I'm like, in hindsight, I'm like, that was not much of something. But and then she's like gone. I don't know. I'd searched her again and she's gone. I don't know what happened, but this kind of seems a little sketchy, shady to me, but it didn't feel right. And you know what feels right when it doesn't,
Yes.
whatever. Yeah.
I know there are a lot of gifted mediums out there. There are. And we all come to bring different things to the table. And I really try to bring trust, and because you're creating a safe space for not just
Mm.
you, but for your loved ones coming over. They have to trust me, and you have to trust me, because some of the things that come through in readings, you just don't want anyone to know.
Yeah.
You don't want that stuff out in public.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate. I feel so blessed whenever the loved ones come through and trust me with information.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel very humbled by it. Now, who surprised you the most coming through?
Well, actually, the one that surprised me the most is, well, I kind of assumed he'd come through because he's the one I wanted most to come through, but I knew from all the other stuff I've read and seen on TV and stuff, and I know that we don't choose, spirit chooses who
Right.
gets bust through the group that fast. And my dad, no, he's such a laid back guy, and
Oh, I do remember
he's
him.
a
Yeah.
wallflower. Yeah, he was not one to take part in the conversation. He had to drag it out of him. He was the one that had to be drugged to the events and things. He just wanted to stay home. Even on Christmas Day, can't we just stay home and just enjoy our stuff? Dad, come on. It's always been like that. And he's been gone for over 10 years now. And it really has bothered me a lot. And it's just, it's a thing that I'm just always, and it feels like he's still there when you're that close to somebody and you've seen them pass. It's a heavy deal to deal with, and it really affected me a lot. And so I'm dealing with this crisis in faith. Like, do I really? And I'm like a skeptical believer is what I consider. I'm jumping ahead to other things, and I'm like I believe in it, but then I'm like, that doubt comes in, that ego doubt guy.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it's just and so dad came through, and this is a little, I told my friends this, I'm like, I'm sorry, this is a little gross, but a little gaggy, but he always called me just a quirky kind of a side nickname. He called me Boy Wonder. He come in the room, hey Boy Wonder, what you doing, Boy? And he's a marine mechanic farmer.
Right.
And I'm an only child. We went over that, spoiled only child. And you said he was very protective. And I'm like, yep,
Yes.
there you go. Helicopter moms, there's helicopter dads too.
Mhm.
He made, when I got ill in '08, he made notes about my schedule routine about things. I'm like, would you stop? And you calling me boy wonder McDad, I am not that. And we went back from, oh, sure you are. But no, gosh. And it's just gross. And so I said, okay, Dad, that's going to be our thing. If she says anything pertaining to that, oh, you don't have to do anything else. I felt it. He was saying, no, I don't know what to do. I don't know anybody, I don't want, come on, just this one little thing and then you can go. You don't have to do much. Just that one, notate that one little hint. And then, I'll know it. And then you said that about him. And then you said, I'm hearing Superboy. And I went, oh, bing, 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 bing. Yeah, okay, that's good enough, Dad. You can go now. Bye-bye. That was, and it was only that the message, but it's what you feel. It's like when it's
Yes.
right here, like that heart, that center, you're like, oh, I feel that. Oof.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with how I get information because they're called clairs, but it's really, seeing, hearing, feeling, all of that. I use so many of mine during readings that they frequently come through. And I don't know if you noticed in the reading, when I would bring through different people, my voice would kind of go up.
Yeah.
Down. I think with your dad, particularly, it kind of slowed down.
Yeah, you were like really slow.
And it was like he wouldn't let me talk any faster. And that's when they kind of, what we call in the spirit world, blending. And I noticed yesterday in a reading, I was trying to break down my readings about how do I do this? Because I just don't even think about it. I just do it.
Right.
Keep them kind of at arm's length until the sitter tells me, oh yeah, that's my mom or my dad or whoever. Let them come close. And when they come close is when I can start feeling them.
Right.
And your dad was, he was happy to be here, but also if people are hesitant on this side, they're going to be hesitant on the other.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's just, that's such a good feeling to know.
Yes.
To know there's still them. And yeah.
And he taught, and then just to know, because you can feel that when you can feel personality on the other side, it's just such a secret to know.
Yeah.
Still the same, but better.
Yeah. Yeah. Expansive knowledge about how they understand everything. And, there's a new perspective. And I like that. Thank God, because there's things that I'm like, do you understand why now, Dad? That kind of thing. And he's just like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. That's nothing.
And they will present and they will let me know up front, I was judgmental. I did this, I did that, just so you can identify who they are.
Yeah.
And then they'll come and say how they changed or how they think now. What surprised me most about your reading was that puppy that came through.
Yes. Yeah. I didn't expect him. I thought my other ones that I thought I was closest to, like I just recently lost a cat last year who I'd been with nearly 20 years, said, Runa, you better come through. But if you don't, whatever. I get caught up and I'm like, oh, I forgot. It's up to you guys, but yeah, Tiger, when I was like in grade school, I was real little. And we had him for a while, but then he went missing and disappeared. And then you went into set hard at ease because that rang true for me. It felt better because I felt, you feel like that makes sense. What you said, that him falling.
Yes. And and to me, that's the hardest thing. If one of your pets goes missing, goes missing, it's the not knowing.
And especially when you're a little kid, that was rough.
Are they starving? Are they cold? All of those things. And so I'm sure that he stepped forward because it had played out in your mind over the years, you dealt with it more, but you probably thought every once in a while, what happened to him?
There was that thing where I told you about, I think we kind of had a feeling what happened with neighbors or whatever, but it probably did. It's like truth is always somewhere in the middle. And maybe it was they had something to do with that trap that you were talking about. So I'm like, ooh, Keith, it's like, ooh, but whatever. But it's like I said, we have it, it's past, it's gone, but when you're a little kid,
it still surprised me. I think it surprised me because for one thing, I'm a dog person. And
Yeah.
so I can imagine if my doggie went missing. I call her a doggie, but she's really a horse-sized dog. So.
Right, right.
But I would wonder, is she cold? Is she being fed?
Oh,
Or
yeah,
is
it's
someone being
rough.
mean to her?
I know it.
So what message surprised you the most in this reading?
I think the first part, well, that's one of the things that surprised me too the most was the message and things is that opening where you mentioned Raguel as my angel, because Roger and Joey talked about you opened up. Well, first of all, I saw your other videos and it was heartened to know that you were so in touch with the angelic realm and the angel and archangels. I'm like, this is the medium that I am so excited. I'm glad Joey gifted me that because what happened was that did you want Mary Care if I went to that now to
Go ahead.
okay, you saw in Joey's reading a painting behind her on the wall, and it was you recognize that as Archangel Raphael, and this is to the thing about we got together us three and exchanged notes and all set our own readings. Well, Joey said that about her painting, and it turns out that's a painting it was a canvas print of a charcoal drawing that I gifted her to. It was because she was going through some health things, and so maybe that I thought if nothing else, when she sees it, she'll think of health, the angel of health and wellness. And so, and it's really just an ambiguous, ethereal, ephemeral, like figurative of charcoal there's not even that much green in it. It's mostly blue, but there's some green to denote Raphael, but not a lot, and not even any distinctive features and not any wings. There's a few squiggly lines denoting energy in it, but not really wings to make it look. It doesn't even look like an angel. It's just like a figure floating with a globe, holding a globe. And I'm like, and she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, my friend Doug gave that to me, it's amazing. I was like, what? And I was heartened because somebody clocked it. I was glad somebody recognized that, first of all, in my own ego. Once again, we talked about which goes, and then Rogers, I had my reading at Rogers' house, excuse me, for the sake of privacy, because I wanted to have a total quiet house and he was gone. And so I had it there. And then you had reading, someone came forward that had a belt buckle and a motorcycle, and the motorcycle would not let up. It was bugging you because you kept coming up with this motorcycle. I'm like, I'm sorry, Christy, this is not clicking. I don't know who that would be. It might come later. Like, I understand that happens. It come later. And the whole thing about it was it was driving me nuts. It was driving you nuts because it kept
coming. Because we couldn't figure out who it was. And that just happened. Usually we can, get there.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that we were telling our stories and Roger's eyes went like wide as saucers and Doug. Oh my gosh. Because remember Keith, my cousin. I'm like, and when you talked to him, you said you have to go because we're not getting it. Sorry. And you kept asking him for more and more and more. And he gave you more and more and more. And then it was more like, it was like, he was kind of like coming in because he had more things to say to Roger, give to Roger. And at least Roger got the message. So, that's funny to me. I laughing because I'm like, Keith was hijacking my reading.
Yes, they do. Spirit does all the time.
Yeah, I get that. And so it was just funny because I'm like, well, and then when he said, you have to go now, you have to go. And he was hanging, you said he hung his head and kind of walked away sad. I'm like, I felt a pang of sadness and regret. I'm like, oh, wait, I was guilty. I felt good. No. Keep him around, Chrissy. Let's just keep talking to him. Maybe he wants to talk. Like, oh, gosh. But yeah.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it covers a couple of things that happens in reading. One we'll address. I have had spirits, I don't think this happened in yours, but sometimes people will step forward first and you can't take them. You don't know who they are, and I'll set them to the side, and then they'll come in later attached to someone else, and then you can identify them. But this poor guy, very, very rarely do I have people come through that we can't eventually identify, that I don't tell them to step aside and they come through later attached to someone else. And this poor guy, I would say, okay, we don't know who you are. Give me more. And he did. He just kept giving me more and more information. And for those of you who don't know, I will work with the spirit for a little while, but then I will say, okay, you have one last chance to give me something big or you have to go.
You're out.
I won't bring through messages to people if you don't know who they are. It's not relevant. And so this poor guy, you could kind of feel bad for him. I say poor guy, it was a spirit, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. It was a spirit on the other side, a gentleman on the other side. And when I said, okay, I'm sorry, we just don't know who you are, you have to go, I kind of felt his letdown, like, okay.
Yeah. Oh.
And so what had happened is you were in your friend's house and that spirit belonged to your friend.
He's like, kind of like he was wanting to give, I got more to say to Roger. I'm not done. I got another chance. And it's like, no, sorry, buddy. It's my time.
And I did not know during this entire reading that Doug was not in his house.
Right.
You didn't tell me until later when you messaged
Right.
to confirm who this guy was. And that will happen if you're in someone else's house or if you have someone else around you. I've had that happen.
Mm-hmm.
They won't tell me there's someone in the background doing dishes or whatever, and then spirits will start coming through, and then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, that belongs to you over there.
Yeah.
Spirit, people just don't understand how much their loved ones on the other side want to talk to them.
Yeah, that's fascinating to me too.
And I forget sometimes because this is my world.
Yeah.
Hours every day, this is my world. And forget that it's not mainstream.
It's getting better. It is getting
better. It is getting better. Yeah, I do have some people who do sometimes wonder, they think I have a voodoo doll or something like that. It's very normal. I just looked at them and there are your people.
Right.
And I think there are skeptical people, which is rightly so, but like I said, I give enough detail so you know who they are.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing also that I want to say surprised me the most is when you talked about when the message, we spent so much time on Raguel. I was like, spirits, are you going to start piping in here? Because we talked about him a lot and he must have had a lot to say. And I get it because my doubt about my own abilities and my art and things. And when you came through that you messaged about healing through art, I'm like, oh my gosh, because a few years ago, well, I have such a bad idea of concept of time frame, I can't, it was probably more like 20 years ago. And it feels like 3 years ago. But I wanted to do, that's when that kind of it's more like probably 5 maybe years ago. And that's why I did that painting for Joey, that canvas print. But I thought maybe there's a thing about healing through art. And it was harkening back to another time when my friend Mary, who's gone, but I did this pastel charcoal, small little strip. And it was like just a color, just an abstract, bright, hot, like a pink against a sky blue background. And it really was it was just a striking thing, but I wanted it as a healing thing. And I was just trying something out and she loved it. And so I was looking into this, but it's something about images that can end up healing people. And so, or get on some level, making them feel better, lighten their spirits, whatever.
Right.
And then you mentioned that, and then we talked about that a lot. And I wasn't sure that I trusted that to be a thing, or it is a thing. And you gave me a link of something.
I did, yes.
It's awesome. It looks really great. And so
that
can be a thing.
Works is now for those of you kind of recap what Doug was just talking about is that Raguel was talking about Doug is an artist, a very gifted artist. I didn't know any of that before the reading until Raguel, who came up first, started talking about it. And he was talking about Doug really using his intuitive ability to make pictures. And so I did right off. I put him on the spot for a thing. Okay, and what kind of picture?
Oh, that was weird. That was a really strange thing to experience, but that was awesome.
And so I was like, okay, take a deep breath. I was walking him through how to tap into that ability real quick. Put him on the spot. He did really well. He told me what he would, draw, and he kept talking about all these blues and blues and blues. And for anyone who knows anything about auras, my aura is very, very blue. And as it gets away from me, it becomes like a purplish and, more white and clear. And you got all of that.
That was weird. I was like, oh my God, I did it. And you're like, yeah, that's exactly my point. Because my aura is very blue and you expand. And I was seeing these lines expand out from you. And I was I was just going with it. So just do it. I'm like, I don't like test questions. But then like, no, this is kind of cool. And sorry. And then the more I talked about it, the more I got into it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Yeah. I'm drawing it in my mind. And
You know me all of 3 minutes. I'm putting a test to you.
I know. That's
You
fine.
took it well. Yeah.
It was still fun. It's still a fun, best test I could take.
Yeah, you did well. You did well.
Thank you.
And how long did your reading last? It lasted a while.
It was a while. Yeah, it was about, I think it was an hour 45.
Yeah, I thought it was
About
almost
40,
2 hours.
a little over, yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember how many people came through for you? How many spirits?
There was my Aunt Lucille, my dad, my grandma and grandpa. And that they didn't have much time because of Raguel. Thanks, buddy. But and so Steve really he monopolized a lot. But and Keith. But that was still cool. And what I want to say, the one big other surprise, if I may, is the cascade of time afterwards. Like today, this morning, it was all coming back to me, and I have looked into Raguel more. And man, I resonate with that guy some more than I.
Yes.
Because when you said Raguel, I was instantly saying, not Michael, because I do a lot of stuff with. I think about Archangel Michael a lot, and being raised Catholic. Saint Michael, hello. That's the big wig. Right. That's the big guns. So you go to him directly all the time. And I think that's bringing all the others are like the little guys. No. And and like you said, well, Michael just said, doesn't everybody need Mike needs, a little help? Is what he said. I said, yep, well, that's true. But Raguel, man, that's some cool, neat stuff. I like that. It's really, I looked up some guided meditations on him and went through some of those and before bed. And what happens is that I'm more energized. I was more energized and more excited. And well, forget that. I can't do that before bed. So do that in the morning, and it worked. It was awesome. Yeah.
So know what Doug is mentioning is whenever I don't do it for everyone because I'm not here to change people's belief system. So if you don't believe in angels, I'm not sending you messages through. But he had mentioned Michael, and I forget sometimes again because it's my world that I have seen Michael with almost everyone to the point I don't really even mention him anymore, poor guy, because I asked him one time, I was like, Michael, what, you're with this person too? Are you with everyone? And he sarcastically said, doesn't everyone need protection? Like, silly human. I was like,
dry sense of humor.
Yes, very dry sense. And so I've seen Michael with so many people, I kind of look behind him to see who else is there because that's the person who will give me the most information about what your mission is, why you're here. And I go back and forth on angels because I don't necessarily study them very much because I don't want my ego to get in the way. And when people don't know, the ego is just your brain knowledge. And so I don't want when I see Raguel, I don't want what I know of him to cloud what I'm getting from him. And so I kind of go back and forth. I don't study angels. I communicate with them a lot, but I don't necessarily study them a lot. I'm just afraid that my earth knowledge will get in the way of me being able to energetically connect with them.
Makes sense.
I'm sure I'll get over that soon. And I don't know.
I think that makes sense though. I mean, if they'll come when it comes, you gotta.
Yes, I do know, like there's certain angels I know, like when I see them, I kind of know the theme, like Mother Mary, who is not an angel, but she presents to me on that vibration. I know that someone's either, having a problem with their marriage or kids or with their mother or something along those lines. And the same thing, I see Raguel when people are they have this ability, but they're not really acknowledging it. And he's there to kind of push them into that direction of you need to step in your truth and own who you are and your talents. And it's different for everyone, what your truth and talents are.
Right.
So what would you say to anyone who is skeptical or kind of?
When you sent me the questions, I was like, everyone I knew immediately. But that one, I was like, boy, that's loaded because there's so much, there are so many layers to that onion. But I would think, first of all, I'd say a skeptic is somebody, I don't see anybody going to a medium in the first place who's a skeptic on their own. If you're a skeptic, why would, other than the test of it that's for a person, it's like, I want to tell, I've had this argument with atheists that I've been dearly close to back in the 90s. We would have, there's no sense in arguing because I don't want to change your beliefs. If you don't believe in it, that's fine. Because he was the best guy one of the best people I've ever known. And poor Mitch, he's just like, well, Doug, just forget it. I'm like, I will, fine. I'm not going to push it. But anyway, skeptics, unless they're gifted at reading and they go along with it, fine. But, you know, I'm going to say, I told Mitch back then in the 90s, I still believed in mediums and things because I was still into it. And even early. And I said, Mitch, they're not omnipotent. It's not like they know everything. They're just given some messages, and they're just people who just get clues and messages and things and insights, and their intuition is not a big mystery. It's not it's not. And then he was just blah, 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 blah. Other than that, I think that skeptics see, I contend that I am, like I mentioned before briefly, I'm a skeptical believer because I believe in all this stuff. But then I'm like, but what if that's my brain? And like I mentioned to you, I still see things coming from the out. I'm learning to discern what is my own thought coming from within, that ego, who I have named Biff, by the way, Biff Tannen and Back to the Future, because you said you named yours. That's helpful. I want to say that's helpful because I've done that the last 2 days. I'm like, yeah, Biff, you got to step aside because you are no longer relevant. And it works. And you get that negative drum beating going, and you're like, nope. And it's ended and it's fine. So, so you just got to, I lost my train of thought. Sorry, but just see what happens. That's the bottom line. And if you don't believe in them, it doesn't matter because they believe in you. So isn't
that the truth? Yeah.
That's just it. There's no other way to put it.
So let's say for those of you watching what Doug was talking about, whenever your ego. So the hardest thing about being a medium or just trusting your intuition is getting your ego out of the way. And so, through lots of training, I named my ego so I can tell this ego to go sit on a bench to try to physically move out of my head because I want to be able to tap into this other realm. And I don't want my ego to get in the way. And I was so glad, like when Doug came to me, I didn't know that you were really good friends with Roger. I, of course, knew you were friends with Joey because she gifted you the reading, but I prefer to not know anything because I don't want my ego to get in the way. I want everything to come organically from the other side. And I start second guessing myself. If I already know something and a spirit is telling me the same thing, I don't like that because I already know it. So now you have to tell me something else.
Yeah. You keep poking, you keep digging, and that's because I'm sorry, but I'm a gabber, and I was like, people are telling me, shut up. I'm hearing, shut up. You let her, because I'm such a talker, and my friends that watch this will be like, oh my God, that's so true. Because they're like, Doug, did you let the poor, like when we were talking, exchanging notes on our readings. Even Roger's like, that poor girl, you're talking constantly talking there. Did you let her get a word in edgewise? I said, yes, I did. So I just didn't try. I tried, but I gab and I talk a lot. I got in trouble in school, high school, all the time. I got detentions because I'm always a talker. The English, poor Mr. Olbert, stop talking, blah, blah, blah. Stop talking, Doug, stop it. I'm always talking. See, I'm doing it now. I'm like, yeah, but see, when I get excited and, happy, fun, excited, you can't shut me up. And so I'm like, I'm leading her. I got to stop it. Cause you're like, God, would you stop it? Cause I'm trying to, and it's like,
yes, if you do, I will tell people, I was like, don't tell me
right
to you or not, but I will.
You did that a couple times. Okay. I'm like,
if I feel like you're about to tell me something that spirit wants to use for validation, I will stop you because once you tell me it's not relevant, the spirit can't tell me then because it's not authentic. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing. I want all the information to be authentic so that we know who they are. But
absolutely
being too gabby. Sometimes I know it's probably hard for people that are sitters is what we call the people that are getting the reading, because if I'm kind of confused on what I'm getting, or I'm trying to get a really good picture, there will be a moment of silence. And you know, to me, it's silent because in my head, there is all this going on. But the poor person looking at me is like, why is she just sitting there in silence? But I'm really trying to figure out, what are they showing me? What does this mean?
Yeah.
And so usually I'll just, I don't know what this means, but I'll tell you what they're showing me. I don't know if I ever did that to you, but
Yeah. I could see you turning and talking and just keep asking questions. And what's that? It's like, yeah. What?
yes, if they are unclear, like if I'm not sure what they are saying or showing me, I will say, can you please make it clear? Or can you please help me?
Mhm.
And, I do talk to spirit. I will ask them questions. People ask me, did we ask any of your people questions? Did you have questions for them?
I think so about and not so much because I just wanted them to. That's one time I was like, let them talk. It's amazing, but I did. I just want them to see what they had to say to you, and so yeah.
Yeah,
But
I will ask spirit questions, and they will sometimes, if you need to know or they want you to know, they'll answer. Sometimes they will say things, they will just turn their back to me, which means they're not going to answer me, or they're just not even going to answer because there's no way that we can comprehend it till we get to the other side. Told me that also. And then people think that spirit can tell the future, like they can say where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing in 5 years, and they can't. And I've also had issues with that. It's like, what do you mean you can't? You're in heaven. Don't you know everything?
Yeah, right. You have an expanded consciousness now. You should know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or it's not our job to know. That's part of the test. It wouldn't be a test. That whole thing, it's not a test if you know the answers. Well, blah, blah, blah. It'd be helpful.
Yes. They will give helpful hints. They will, say, but they won't, you're right. It's our job. I had a lady who was in a very difficult situation, and probably 5 of her relatives had addressed it. And she just wanted them to give her an answer. It's free will. This is your choice. You have to make this decision.
You're in the game now. Yeah.
And so sometimes we do just want spirit. Just tell me what to do.
Yeah. That's one thing I wanted to add to this whole experience, because like I mentioned afterwards, the whole thing, also another surprise was the after effects of it. Like, and I was thinking this morning during my coffee, I was like, it was just like and it was always so like a cascade that has constantly like been coming down. That's a very peaceful feeling during this whole thing. And I didn't get from that other medium in 05, but it's just it just kept coming down, and it's just this calm and peaceful centering. It's a centered feeling. It's centered, grounded feeling. And all this stuff I know about Raguel has just opened up a whole nother world for me, and how I kind of like graduated to another level kind of after all this information. Right. And it's almost like the job of the sitter too. I don't know if this is fair, but when you opened up the couple that came through, and I'm like, well, that could be anybody. And you kept asking, digging, and you asked them to separate because sometimes their energies blend if they're together. So you had them separate, and the maternal grandmother came forward, and like, well, you didn't say that, but you said the woman is coming forward. And at first I thought it was my great aunt and uncle Joe and Dorothy. Well, then in my mind's eye, I just saw them and they faded away. And when you said he patted on her on her hand, and my grandfather died when I was 5. My maternal grandfather died when I was 5. And so, and I remember seeing him do that. I just had an image of him doing that one time in the home place in our house when he was getting better from cancer, but right before they pass away, they have that rebound, and they came out and everybody was happy. And I remember that day, and we took a picture of that, and they're in front of our hutch, and they're so happy. And he was the only time I saw him laugh and smile, because he was so sickly and now he felt like he was coming back. And he patted her on the hand when they were sitting. And I saw him do that like vividly when you mentioned that. And that just blew me away. And so, okay, that has to be Grandma Lukey, my maternal grandmother. And then you mentioned how much she likes to cook, and she served him hand and foot. Yes. All the ticks were going. Yeah. After you said that.
Yeah. And I tried to make sure I bring through the little things like that. Like, I knew the way he kind of handed off and patted her, I knew it was significant because the feeling I got along with it. And yeah, I forgot about that. She did wait on him, and she made
I didn't mention she was a waitress too. And it made Mom so mad because she would get so angry that she had a rough time with her father until the end. It was all good at the end, but then my grandma would like come home on her feet all day waiting tables, and then she'd come home and make his dinner, and he'd be sitting there, and she'd pour his drink, like you even said that she was pouring
Yes.
his drink, his coffee, whatever, and said that's grandma, man. She was hip. She loved waiting on people. And
I do want to address something that you said, and I appreciate you saying it, and because whenever I started this, part of my mantra and part of why I got into mediumship is, and if you see my tagline, it says healing one heart at a time. Because that I don't just want to bring through your past relative and boom, here's your answer, let's move on. Here's your answer, let's move on. Because that's not where the healing comes from. Healing is when you spend time bringing them forward and developing their personality, and so you can get a true feel for them and their message. So you are just confident that it is them. There's no doubt in your mind.
yeah, and you got to feel it in that heart part.
Yes.
And that's what I did with Lucille when my Aunt Lucille came forward, who I wasn't necessarily close to, but that was the most shocking part of any kind of visitation dream, because that I've had, and I've had like 3 big ones, and in my life I remember 3, yeah. And when I saw her, when you said this woman, you described a nicely put together woman with bright lipstick, I'm like, that's Lucille, because I had a visitation dream of her, and I wasn't even very close to her. My cousin Wendy was, because she was her 4-H mother. I told you about that. And I never was in 4-H because he's not going to get interested in farming at all. My son is not going to get into this. And so I wasn't in 4-H, so I wasn't close to Lucille. I hardly ever saw her. And so I don't know, but she liked seeing me, and for some reason I felt an affinity towards her. And I had the visitation dream that was more vivid than life. I mean, it was crazy. And I just remember seeing her bright red lipstick, said, you got to go back inside the house, you can't be out here. When I went out to the picnic in the backyard, and I was so angry because I wanted to stay because it felt so good, and I just did not want to leave. And she's just been around. I think about her a lot, and I don't know why. And then when you mentioned her, it's like, gosh, she's here again. It's like, wow, she wasn't going to pass up this opportunity, I guess. But
we just never know who we're that energetically connected to, and that's surprising. Like, there's the people that you feel are going to step forward, they do, and there's other people you're just not, but their messages mean something. Like, you're confused as to what they're stepping forward because you weren't that close on this side, but their messages mean something and they bring their own healing.
Yeah, that was the one part of the reading that choked me up. I'm choked up now. It's like, oh my God, that was so cool. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for gifting me with your time today and doing this interview. I appreciate it so much for being.
Well, it was fun. I'm glad to get in touch with you again. It's fun. And I'll probably be getting another meeting lined up soon, because
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
If you have any questions, please contact me at ChristyGodwin111@gmail.com. Thank you so much. Have a great day.